Hey there, I'm Zetsubou J and welcome to the anime that time forgot. This is a segment I'll be doing in between my more contemporary reviews, and where I take a look at older, more obscure animes that people haven't seen or even heard of for that fact. To kick things off, I got this right here. Look familiar? Hell no it doesn't. In fact, I can't think of a single otaku I've ever met that knows of this series. So, kick back and relax as I review this forgotten classic, Master of Mosquiton. Master of Mosquiton got its start as a manga. Wait, no it didn't. It was just an OVA in the beginning. Yes, Mosquiton comes from that great era of the 90s where writers at studios would just come up with their own concepts and develop them as direct-to-video releases. Some were created as supplementary material to pre-existing franchises, while others were just full short-format stories that would usually get their own TV retelling. Mosquiton's the latter. It was made in 1996 and was the original creation of Satoru Akihori and Hiroshi Nagishi. The story takes place during the 1920s, and focuses on a petulant teenage girl and her servant/boyfriend vampire as they travel from Shanghai to London to even a pyramid on the moon in search of a sacred artifact called the Opart. And it occasionally cuts to our obligatory villains as they talk about finding the Opart for their own purposes and the return of some beings called the Star Lords. The series stays really vague about the overall plot and our antagonist's true intentions, so I will too. And I'm just gonna move straight to the characters, starting with Inaho Hitomobori and Alucard von Mosquiton. Inaho, ever since she was a little girl, has been obsessed with finding the Opart to obtain immortality and eternal youth. After finding her grandmother's diary and book of sorcery, she learns of the deceased vampire M. After finding his tomb, she performs a blood ritual that restores his life and makes him her slave. Mosquiton is a member of the House of M and is one of the mightiest vampires. Or at least he was. His powers are sealed off and can only be awakened by drinking the blood of his master. And with his god mode turned on, he becomes a violent, unstoppable beast. And it's only by being killed and resurrected again that he can return to his kind and docile form. The partnership between these two is really odd to say the least. They claim to be in a relationship, but Inaho never fails to take advantage of the fact that she owns his dick. I mean that in a non-sexual way. She takes full advantage of the fact that he's her slave, and she makes him do all the work that you'd expect a slave to do. And he doesn't mind at all. He even goes as far to say that her bossy, immature personality is endearing. Though they do have that weird dynamic between them, the relationship, oddly enough, has a very real quality to it. It's strange that an action comedy anime geared towards a male audience was able to produce a more believable relationship between a girl and a vampire than, say, I don't know, long-running novel/film series that may or may not have grossed millions of dollars, and is one of the largest pop cultural phenomenons of the decade. Just say it's kinda weird, and that Twilight sucks. Moving on. Mosquiton also has two servants of his own, Hono, a fire elemental, and Yuki, an ice elemental, who spend most of their time in childlike states and can transform into adult versions to reach their full power. They're both extremely loyal to Mosquiton and have a severe disliking of Inaho, who they refer to as Mama Inaho.
Don't call me Mama!
They can't stand her immature attitude and can't help but have sympathy for their poor, mistreated master. So they pretty much act as the eye-level characters for the audience to relate to. Next we have Camille Hooters Carmilla. Wait, no, I mean Tits Inaho Knockers. God damn it! Camille Inaho Carmilla. There we go. Who not only acts as our infinite fan service generator, but is also the wife of Mosquiton, who has been looking for him ever since they were separated over 300 years ago. For being what she is, she's actually well developed, and is someone the audience can really feel for. Here we have a woman who is separated from her one true love, only to find him 300 years later in the arms of another woman. She's a really sympathetic character. Also, am I the only one out there who thinks it's a little weird that Mosquiton chooses Inaho over boobies? I mean, Jugs is loyal, subservient, she cooks and cleans while wearing barely their outfits on that perfect body, and Inaho's just a bitch. I don't know about you guys, but if I have to make the choice, I'm totally taking off with Milkman's McFunbags and giving that ball breaker the finger. Finally, we have our two antagonists, who are actually based on real historical figures. First is our evil mastermind, Grigory Rasputin, who you may remember from such films as Rasputin the Mad Monk, Anastasia, Hellboy and the Princess Diaries. He plans on using the O-Park to fulfill his plans, which, again, aren't revealed until the end, so I'm not going to spoil in this review. Then there's his second-in-command, Count Saint Germain, who's a vampire, centaur, thing, with rocket fingers? Oh, and he has an extreme hatred of Mosquiton. You know, the Japanese have a pretty fucked perspective of this guy. In Le Chevalier de Zeon, he's an alchemist, which is a pretty accurate representation of the real person. In Curse of Darkness, he's a time-traveling gentleman ringmaster. And in Master of Mosquiton, he's whatever the fuck that's supposed to be. I'm not sure why the Japanese have such a hard-on for doing weird shit to this guy. It's not like they take famous samurai and represent them in completely inaccurate ways.
Attack Tadakatsu! We may survive this too!
I would like to take this moment to rescind my asinine statement. The series has a really unique style to it, and I can't think of another anime that looks like it. The animation is also very nice and really stands the test of time. It has the kind of high budget you'd expect of an OVA, and they put it to good use. I admit not every scene is dripping with budget and high quality animation, but it is when it matters. The DVD has the standard 2.0 audio that you'd expect, and supports both English and Japanese tracks. And if I were to recommend one, I'd definitely say English all the way. Not that there's anything wrong with the Japanese dub, it's just that it has a really good English dub. The translation is very faithful to the subs, for the most part, and the voice actors are very talented, and Mosquiton's voice actor, whose name I won't even attempt to butcher, steals the show.
Oh, my darling. I was so lonely. I waited and waited for you to come back to me, but you just left me all alone. How could you? You're just awful, darling.
Just a second here!
Take me, please.
Though some people may be bothered by Media Blaster's punching up of the dialogue, by making Inaho a bit cruder and making the characters like Count Saint Germain, Rasputin, and Majin Mosquiton sound a little more eloquent. I personally believe it really adds to the entertainment value of the series. Inaho's rantings are made funnier, and the complete change in the way Mosquiton speaks.
She who belongs to me. My great power has been bound by blood, but with that same blood, it is now mine once again.
Makes it very clear that this is not the same person. I do have to take a few points away for one odd choice that they made. In the English dub, they constantly call Saint Germain
Saint Germain! Saint Germain? Saint Germain.
Saint Germain, which is really weird, and I'm not sure why they did this. I'm going to assume it wasn't a conscious decision, it was just a mistranslation thing. The soundtrack is great too. Though I doubt you'll find yourself humming any of these tunes afterwards, you definitely won't feel that they're out of place. The music has a lot of diversity and the overall mix is unique. I know it's a word I keep using, but it's one that could just describe the entire series. It's really amazing how much creativity is in the series. When they do the big reveal at the end and finally explain what they've been hinting at the whole time, and you let the premise sink in for a moment, it really becomes one of those "holy shit" moments. Combine that with the fleshed out characters, gut-busting humor, interesting set pieces, awesome fight scenes, one of which takes place in space, and this beautiful animation, you have the perfect anime. Or at least you would if it wasn't for its brevity. If there's one thing I have to complain about, it's the length. It's only 6 episodes long, and for an OVA that usually isn't a problem. But with Mosquiton, we're left with too many unanswered questions. Like, what killed Mosquiton in the first place? How did Inaho's grandmother find him? Why is his power sealed by Blood Pact? Why do Yuki and Hono serve him? What was the event that caused Camille and Mosquiton to be separated? And what's their history with Count Saint Germain? We never really get closure on any of these things. But you really shouldn't hold out against the series, since none of these things are actually important to the plot, and the story still moves at a steady pace. And I think that's partly due to the fact that it doesn't get sidetracked by feeding you every little detail. Instead of showing you the big picture, they give you the pieces and let you put it together yourself. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's definitely one of the great underrated classics and deserves a spot on anybody's anime shelf. It's also a really good obscure series to pull out whenever you and your friends are otaku dick measuring to see who's the more hardcore old schooler. Well, that sums up my review of Master of Mosquiton. See you guys later.
Blood, gallons of the stuff. I gave you all that you can drink, and it has never been enough. I gave you blood, blood. God!